Welcome into another episode of Indiana Football in Review. I'm your host, John Alden, with Mitchell Paige, former wide receiver Mitchell Paige, alongside as always. And we're looking a little more professional this time around. Got a little background representing Hoosier Illustrated. Maybe people will take us a little more seriously, right, Mitchell?
I doubt it.
Yeah. Speaking of Mitchell, if you're watching on YouTube, which this is actually the only way to watch this particular podcast, so you have to be watching it. He's pulling his best Walt Bell impersonation today. If you're looking at the mustache he's got going on, the sort of slick back hair, I guess. Is that what you're going for, Mitchell?
It's a little comb over. It's mostly hat hair that I was trying to make look semi-presentable, but I shaved a mustache because we hung out with my buddy who's in the Air Force. And if you're familiar with the Air Force, and I don't know if this is all armed forces, but you can either be clean shaven or have a mustache, and he usually has a mustache. So we went to hang out with him this weekend. He did not have a mustache, so I was the only one that had a mustache. But I kind of like it, and it may stay at least another day or two.
Well, there you go. If it didn't remind me of Walt Bell, I'd be more of a fan of it. But maybe there's some irony to it, considering what's happened with Indiana football in the past several weeks. And that's what we're here to talk about. Indiana's most recent outing. They lost on homecoming to Rutgers, who is now bowl eligible. Final score of 31-14. A myriad of things went wrong. Again, another nice start for Indiana. They get off to a 7-0 lead, much like they did against Michigan last time around. And then before you know it, I don't want to say it was a blowout immediately after that, because it's probably giving Rutgers a little too much credit. But from there on, the fight for Indiana wasn't what you might have thought it would be after those first couple of those series. And then you had special teams problems. You had a blocked punt. You had the muff punt from Jalen Lucas. And Mitchell, I'm sure you'll share your thoughts on that particular thing, because you had a tweet during the game that kind of got a lot of reaction, because he used to return punts as well. So a lot of things that Indiana wasn't able to clean up, and now they're 2-5 with Penn State coming up next week. And mathematically you can still get to the postseason, but at this point, I said last week, Rutgers was kind of I hate calling it judgment day for Indiana football this season, but that's kind of where everybody had their eyes whenever they were thinking about what the season may look like as you head toward the back half of the year, and you kind of figure out whether or not they're going to be in the postseason or not. This performance did not show me anything that makes me think that this team will play in a bowl game this year.
Oh, yeah, they certainly don't deserve to. I do think they play hard, but they just make a lot of really dumb mistakes. I don't know exactly what the stats are, but we used to get read them. This was like in 2016. Percentage of teams that win when they get a punt blocked is like 8%. And then that percentage goes down to less than 1% when they return it for a touchdown. That was based on like the last 10,000 games or something like that. So as soon as something like that happens, obviously you're swimming an uphill race. But yeah, I mean, they're just sloppy. They really struggle on the offensive line, on the defensive line too. I mean, Rutgers is a physical team. That's kind of their identity. Their quarterback was just not going to beat you with his arm. And instead, he just dominated on the ground. There was a lot of the Big Ten was tweeting and putting on Instagram all the records that Rutgers was setting for a quarterback running for 3 touchdowns, how many yards they had. It was a look at kind of where we really truly stand in the conference, because in years past, Rutgers is a game that you circle as like we got this one. If we lose to Rutgers, something went terribly wrong. And I lost to Rutgers. I know that things can go terribly wrong, but it always felt like a measuring stick game of sorts for the season. And in the last 3 years, they've beat us like 200-12 or something like it. The games have just not been close. Last year, I think was probably the darkest time as an IU fan that we've had in a long time, when they came in and beat us, whatever they beat us, 41-0 or something. This year, it just felt like a slow death. We couldn't do anything to stop them. We made plays to lose the game. It's funny you mentioned Twitter. I was actually doing some self-reflecting. I'm a pretty positive person. I like to laugh and have fun, and I like tweeting about Indiana. And unfortunately, for the last 3 years, those two things cannot coexist. If you're going to tweet about Indiana, there is not a lot to be happy and positive about. So I have done some reflect. I needed to find something positive, but yeah, it's just the tweet that you're referencing it's not hard to field a punt. It really is not. Especially how many hours you're spending doing it. If you're going to do it well, and being a good punt returner, and this is more of just a general thing in college football. If you just turn on the TV on Saturday, it is amazing how terrible these teams are. I'm talking the worst team to Alabama. Like, these guys cannot field a punt. They're standing under the ball. I was just flipped on Alabama and Tennessee, and Alabama basically has the game in hand. Tennessee punts it to them. Ball lands on like the 25-yard line. The kid is standing under it, and he gets out of the way at the last second. The ball bounces 25 yards forward, and Tennessee downs it on the half-yard line. That's a game-changing play. And it's amazing how many people cannot find someone on their team to go back there and just catch it. That's your first and foremost responsibility. And I think that that's kind of been lost. But it really isn't that hard of a thing to do. And Indiana has just really, really struggled with it. I think Jalen Lucas is a good player that's really, really misused by the Hoosiers. I just running him up the middle, and he's electrifying on kickoff return, but it's just not that position is just hard. They have not put him in position to be explosive. And I think that that's kind of the same sentiment for a lot of the players on the offense. Not having Cam Camper, who's your only legitimate, consistent threat to defenses, having him hobbled all year has just made it really hard on the quarterbacks.
And really, ever since he got to Indiana, Cam Camper hasn't really been able to be his full self.
No,
with all the injuries he's had.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's guys come to Indiana and just get hurt. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's the turf down there, but it's possible to win games as an Indiana Hoosier. It's possible, and right now it just doesn't feel that way. You almost turn on the TV on Saturday and hold your breath. Now, I wouldn't hold your breath this coming weekend against Penn State. I think Drew Allar looked horrible against Ohio State, but I think he's a really good player, and Ohio State's really good on defense. So I think we're going to see a revitalized Penn State offense that is going to be chomping at the bit to score 100 if they can, because they got to get themselves back into contention. So I think the Hoosiers may be deer in headlights coming Saturday at noon.
And that's what I'm afraid of, because at this point in the season, when you've already had so many letdowns, and a lot of the guys on this roster are used to having seasons go downhill at this point. I mean, we're pretty far removed from having any guys left who experienced the seasons that were definitely not the 8-4 team. There may be a couple guys remaining from the 6-2 2020 team, depending on, the COVID year and how all that stuff works with eligibility. But I mean, these guys their identity is that they can't get the job done right now. And that's not saying that they're not trying or that they don't care, but it's been a long time since Indiana has experienced winning momentum and expecting to win games at this point. We are back to where we were in the beginning days of Kevin Wilson. And even before that, the coaches that came before Kevin Wilson. It's gotten to the point to where fans have checked out. There's people who are ready to move on from this current coaching regime. Whether that's going to happen at the end of this year, my bet right now would be no. There are certain circumstances, depending on what happens the rest of the year, where I think that could turn into a yes, but we'll get to that whenever that may or may not come around. We'll talk about that later in the year. But at this point in time, you're more than likely going to have at least one more year with Tom Allen as your head coach. And if you're a fan and you're in a weird spot right now, and that's what I am. I'm a fan. Mitchell, you're not only a fan, you're an alumni of the program, but there's a lot of, you're kind of feel like you're at a crossroads right now. It's the Indiana football program is a very somber place to be right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm happy I'm here talking to you instead of in those meeting rooms. That I can assure you.
Well, what is it like for you as a fan though, like dealing with this, and as an alumni more specifically, like, and you don't have to get super personal if you don't want to, but like seeing where the program was, not only when you were there, but where it went during the first couple of seasons after you left, and now seeing what's gone down. What's that like for you to see it happen like that?
Yeah, I think that the answer to that question is kind of two-parted. First and foremost, I just want them to win. I'm a fan just like anyone else. I get really excited when they play well, and it ruins my week when they play bad. I'm a fan at heart beyond anything else. Second part of that is I do have a lot of pride, and I think a lot of guys that I played with had a lot of pride in building not necessarily a juggernaut, right? We weren't winning 10 games, but we had a certain swagger that even like I think that some of this is the best way to answer. Some of the best compliments that I ever got, like we were still a couple years away, I think, when I graduated, but we started in the gutter when I was first there.
Yeah.
So the progress that we made by my last year, people saying, I don't care what the spread is, bet the Hoosiers. Like that gives you a little bit of confidence. That shows that people believe in what you're doing, and it allows you to believe in what you're doing. I didn't care who was standing across, and it's easy to say that, but and we kind of proved it, at least on the offensive side of the ball. I can't necessarily speak for some of the guys on defense, but we had a lot of really good players on defense too. And by my last year, we were really solid. And people are going to forget that was a Tom Allen defensive coordinated defense. It didn't matter who was lining up against us. In 2015, we had a throw into the end zone to beat the eventual national champion Ohio State Buckeyes with Xander Diamont playing quarterback for 4 quarters. Xander Diamont, I
totally forgot about that.
One of my favorite people in the world. So hopefully, if he hears this, doesn't take offense to this. That guy, just like me, had no business playing in the Big Ten, but he was just nasty. He totally embodied what Kevin Wilson was looking for. Just gritty. Don't care who you are. I'm going to do what I'm going to do right in your face, and you're not going to stop me. And Xander Diamont and that team, that was kind of our identity. We may not be as big or as fast or as strong as you are at some positions. At some positions, we absolutely were, and had a lot of guys that would start on those Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan teams, me not being one of them. But it allowed people like Xander, and like a lot of guys on the team to play with a little bit of swagger and a little bit of confidence. And we took a lot of pride in that. And it's sad to see that it just doesn't feel like that's there anymore. Like I watch Penn State and think, man, we are so far away from what that is. We lost a lot in the fourth quarter, making dumb mistakes, shooting ourselves in the foot, but we got it to the fourth quarter.
Yep.
This game could be over halfway through the first quarter, and that kind of stinks.
Yeah. And I guess really the moral of this is, especially if you're looking for anything to keep an eye on the rest of the season, even this week specifically, is you want to see them fight against Penn State, even though they're going to be heavy underdogs. I don't know what the spread is right now. I'm sure there's an early line out there somewhere.
I saw 30.
Wow.
Over under set at 44.
And see, and back when you were playing, even against Penn State, I don't think Indiana was ever more than 14-point dogs against somebody like that.
I can't remember ever being more than 2 touchdown underdogs, and that was probably to number 1 or 2 Ohio State a couple times.
Yep. So we'll just sit back, wait and see, and hope for a better result against Penn State. And the best you can ask for this weekend is that they look like they care.
Yeah.
If you're expecting to beat Penn State, then you're just having fun, I guess, and that's okay. And you never know. Crazy things have happened. If Penn State comes out sleeping because they're playing against one of the worst teams in Power 5, then maybe Indiana will find themselves with a chance to win.
Virginia just did it, John. Virginia just did it to North Carolina.
That's right. Exactly. And Virginia, another one of the worst teams in Power 5 football. So if you want, if and that's one way to spark the end of your season. Not that I'm predicting it to happen, but if you're looking for something, and I feel like I'm at a loss for words at this point. It probably sounds like I am too, but that's the kind of thing you have to hope happens if you're a fan. You can't expect it, but you can hope for it, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I think we started the season with some hope, and then you go.
This is every year for the past 3 years is how it started.
Yeah, and then you go through some disappointment to pure sadness and grief. I'm kind of past that, and now I just want to be. Who knows? The crazier things have happened. I truthfully don't predict that there's much left on the schedule for the Hoosiers, unfortunately. So we get to go into every week hoping for the surprise of a season, of a decade, whatever it is, without any real expectations. Expectations being that things are going to go bad. So it's kind of a fun way to watch the games. We get to play spoiler to anyone that we step on the field with. And hopefully the guys in the meeting rooms keep the lights on at least a little bit, because you let the lights go off and just run that tape over and over. It can be pretty easy to get down. A lot of football left to be played. They still got to play 5 times, and the Saturdays are few, John. I just hope I hope the guys can figure out a way to motivate somehow.
Yep, and we'll leave it at that, and we'll talk to you guys next week after the Penn State game, and who knows what we're going to get from that. I mean, it could be 52-3, it could be 35-38, and it's probably not going to be the second one that I said, but it's fun to at least mention it.
It does make it fun.
Also be sure to check out Out of Touch. I know we talk about this every week. We have a good time on there. We just started a voicemail line. We've been taking calls, and that's been good. So give us a call. I'll go ahead and throw that number out there. It's 502-830-9195 if you want to call the Out of Touch podcast and talk about nonsense with me, Mitchell, and Dustin Schutte. So thanks for listening. Also, check out what Kyler and Alec are doing on Hoosier Illustrated. They obviously got a lot of good stuff, especially with basketball season come on. Surely a lot of you, especially those who are both Indiana football and Indiana basketball fans and not like the Notre Dame type of basketball fan. If you're one of those guys, check out what they've got going on at Hoosier Illustrated. So until next week, we will talk to you next time.